Oh, okay. Looks like, okay. So now we're officially live. Okay, that's sorry about that. Well, okay. Well, in that case, I will just go ahead and repeat myself.
Sure.
But let's just double check and make sure. Okay. So if you go to the event and you go to discussion, I believe, you can see the actual live stream and you should be able to see the posts on there. And let's also check. Okay, cool. Can
Yeah,
you
I see
can you
it.
see it? Okay,
I
perfect.
see it.
Amazing. So I'm just gonna just because we are now going live, I'm going to repeat what I said a second ago.
Sure.
Christian is a trusted friend of mine. He's a total high-level wizard. Him and I have been talking about operation stuff and being total nerds together for a while now. And after meeting up with him at Level Up and really getting to kind of talk to him some more, I really wanted to kind of give him the spotlight because I think that he's a total genius. And he's really just like a total integrator, and I love that. And so I wanted to give him the spotlight today in front of all you guys and let him shine. He's going to be talking about about automating your onboarding process and how to do that in a super streamlined way, so you're not spending a whole bunch of time every single time you're onboarding a client. And so with that being said, I am going to make him the host of this. I'm going to bounce out. I'm going to let him take the entire spotlight here. So with that being said, I wish you the best of luck and thank you everybody for coming. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and bounce. I'll see you, Chris.
See you, bro. Okay, everybody. So today I'm going to be discussing, hi, everybody, John, Olawi, Kevin, Precious, John, how actually this was born. Okay, so the way the onboarding sequence was born, the way the whole onboarding process was born, it was by necessity. So I'm actually going to start sharing my screen. And I'm going to go through this PowerPoint that I prepared for you guys. So the way this was born is I did this for a client that had zero knowledge of automation. Okay, so my client was asking me, he needed every possible thing automated. Okay, every possible thing automated. Can you guys see my screen? Is there a way for you guys to see my screen? Please drop a one if you can see my screen. Okay, great. So as I was saying, I did this for a client that had zero knowledge of automation. He needed every possible thing automated. Okay, that meant from whenever the client fills out the onboarding form until when you create the Twilio number. So in this onboarding sequence that I'm going to explain today, I'm going to show you how you can create every possible step of your onboarding process. That includes not just creating a Go High Level sub account for your client, but also sending the welcome email, the standard stuff, and the not so common stuff. So just so you know, guys, so you know, this is not just a theory, but this has been battle tested. I have spent a total of 30 hours between research, strategy, implementation, testing, and troubleshooting in this onboarding sequence. In fact, I have a log of every single thing I've done on my ClickUp, all the resources I have consulted, and every single step that needed to be done for this onboarding sequence. So whenever you are creating a project in Go High Level, here's something I recommend. You should always track two things. You should track your time using a project management tool like ClickUp, and you should document what you are doing. You should document what you are doing. For example, when I was building this make scenario, I documented the mistakes that happened, the errors that happened, the Loom videos that I consulted, whatever support said, etc. And just so you know, because I'm going to be super transparent here, I haven't created this in a vacuum. I have used the help of other people. I have checked other videos. I have checked the documentation. And this process wasn't perfect from the start. Automations require maintenance and they require optimization from time to time. Okay, that's something that is very important to note. So I'm going to proceed. I'm going to proceed and I'm going to show you what was the old way of doing things. So the old way of doing things was basically the following. Was the agency owner sends the invoice, the client fills out the onboarding form, then either the agency owner or the VA sends welcome email and SMS, agency owner or the virtual assistant gives access to membership course, agency owner or VA creates task card in project management tool, or the agency owner VA creates Google Drive and files, and maybe also the agency owner creates a record in Google Sheets, okay, in Google Sheets, or in a database, right? That's typically the way it's done. That's typically the way it's done. And gives access to membership course. That's typically the way it's done. And gives access to membership course. That's the okay. So let's jump right through it. The new way of doing things is that 90% of this process is going to be automated. Okay, 90% of the process is going to be automated, and the onboarding form triggers all the automations. So just so you know, guys, first of all, there are two ways to technically consider a client as onboarded. First of all, some of you don't have an onboarding form because your offer is very simple. So in your case, if you don't have an onboarding form because your service is very, very straightforward, or let's say you're a home service business owner that you don't require a lot of details from the client, then this could be your onboarding trigger. Your onboarding trigger could be pipeline stage changed. Let's say that you manually drag a contact in your pipeline to a stage that is new client, right? That's a way to do it. That's one of the possible triggers. Right now, this is not what I do. What I do is onboarding form filled. Another way is the payment. Either someone pays from an order form submission. Let's say that you have a funnel, right? In this case, when it's a sale in a specific funnel, you could say, okay, whenever someone fills out the order form submission and pays, that's a client onboarded. Another way to do it, in this case, I'm going to delete because I don't want to make changes to my actual onboarding, is invoice. Once invoice has been paid, that can also be. I strongly recommend that you don't start with those, but you start with a form. Here's how you're going to create your form. I'm going to show this step by step. So in your Go High Level account, you should have, we're assuming that you're agency owners. If you're not an agency owner, but you are a physical business owner, then you will have one sub account only. If you're an agency owner and you have clients under Go High Level, you will have multiple sub accounts and you will have at least one sub account for you, one sub account for your business. Okay, one sub account for your business or for your agency. In that case, what you're going to do is the following. We're going to start with an onboarding form, and I'm going to show you how this is done. So you will go to sites, you will go to forms, and then you need to create a client onboarding. By the way, I have documented the process of creating a new onboarding with these steps. I'm going to show them to you. You should have always the process in mind that is going to be used for your clients or you. Here's how you're going to know this. You always need to reverse engineer and work backwards. Okay, you reverse engineer and work backwards. You need to define the details of your niche industry and how the ideal onboarding process should look like. How the ideal onboarding process should look like. You need to have an offer. You might have an assigned team member. You might have a project management tool. You might have tasks to do and templates. So with that said, I strongly recommend that you map out your onboarding process based on the things that you're seeing in a mind map. In this case, I have a mind map here. This was the onboarding process. Okay, this was the onboarding process. So now that we have that, we proceed to create a form. You need to have an onboarding form for your clients. You need to know what are the questions that we are going to add based on what you guys want to do after you onboard the clients. Is there any condition, etc.? Are there any specific conditions? Are there any specific cases that you need to perhaps make an exception or something? All of that is going to influence your onboarding process. Okay, so in this case, for example, I've created this onboarding form. Business name, business phone, business address, business website, business Facebook page, time zone, full name, cell phone number, email, representative name, information for the ad area code, main city, cities to call out, team building event, number of Google reviews, average rating on Google, email for lead notifications, appointment times to keep on calendar, position to hire, experience required, gross annual revenue, annual salary, overtime, Facebook access, benefits, additional benefits, bulk hiring, and photos for ads. The reason why we're asking so many questions is because we're going to use all of these questions to automate things in our onboarding process. For example, this information, the business info, is going to be used to create a sub account. The business owner info is going to be for the custom fields and the custom values, which I'm going to explain later. The information for the ad is going to be used, one, for the Twilio number to automate Twilio number creation, and two, to automate ad copy creation. Photos are going to be for the ads, which is optional because some clients don't have them. So now that we are here, we need to first test this form. We test the form and we delete our submission. Then we need to proceed to create our actual onboarding workflow. So we always want to start with an onboarding form, and that's going to be our workflow trigger. Going back to the onboarding. We have an onboarding form here. So in this workflow, the workflow trigger is going to be form filled, form submitted. You can also do a survey, by the way, that doesn't have to be a form. And you need to put which form it is. In this case, it's client onboarding. Then you need to define everything that you want to know about this client and everything that you want ideally to happen once you onboard a new client. In my case, for example, I want to add a client tag. It's of paramount concern that you not just define your leads based on what pipeline stage they are. But if by mistake someone moves them from pipeline to pipeline, you should always add a tag. You should add tags because once you add tags, you can find contacts easier in smart lists. You can create smart lists and you can also filter opportunities by a tag. This is why tags are so important, and I strongly recommend you use a tag. Then you're going to move this person in the pipeline and in the pipeline stage that you want. You might have two different pipelines, a leads and a client's pipeline. In that case, you should update both. Opportunity name should be contact name and opportunity source, contact source. Status is going to be 1. In this case, we also update this person in the client pipeline as onboarding submitted. Okay. Also, very important to add notes. You should add always notes based on what the person filled out in the onboarding form. Here's why. Here's why. Because if you don't add notes, you're going to need to go to the contact every single time to check all the info. But if you don't have time for that and you just want to check the contact in the opportunity, this person is going to appear with all the information, all the notes. How you add the info, how do you add the notes is very easy. You put whatever field you want, and then you add custom values, contact, and then custom fields. And these are all the custom fields that are going to be in the form, in all the forms. That's how you do it. Then I strongly recommend, by the way, the onboarding process can vary from agency to agency. Like, there are not two businesses that are alike. Every single business is different. However, there are things that are common trends. There are things that are common patterns for everybody. However, there are patterns that are going to be common for everybody. For example, a welcome email. Welcome email, you need to congratulate your client on becoming a client. And you need to tell them what are the next steps. You need to tell them what are the next steps. Okay? Another thing is a welcome SMS. They should know that they are now your clients. Here's an optional step. If you have some sort of course, you can grant the membership grant offer. And then in this case, we don't have any offer, but that's something that you can also do. There are many things that you can do, by the way. You can add a task. Let's say you want every single time a new client gets onboarded, you can assign this to a user and say something like, hey, manually call. You can put call, contact, full name. Oh. That's something you can do. You don't have to. I'm just giving examples. The rest is where the magic really is going to happen. So please, I want to make sure you're following me. Please drop a 2 in the chat. Drop a 2 in the chat if you are following me, because I don't want to lose anyone for either being too technical or any pronunciation mistake. Is there anything that is not clear so far? I can always repeat. Please drop a 2. Okay, I see a 2, at least one. Perfect. Great. Oh, another 2. Amazing. So let's go back. You should notify yourself or your team internally. Okay, you should notify yourself internally with all the info. And here are other things you can do in your client onboarding. Here's something that not everybody knows, but you can segment your client onboarding and have different branches based on whatever they answer in their onboarding form. I'm going to make you an example, but before I'm going to make you an example, I'm going to give you a preview of what's about to happen after this. There's going to be a make webhook. A webhook is it's like a signal that sends the information from this place, from Go High Level, to another place. In this case, a software called Make. This is where really the magic happens. You don't need this. This is just turbocharging, taking everything to the next step. Oh, amazing. I see 4 2s. So, but this is just a preview of what's going to happen later. Then something that I always do, and I find it super important, is removing the client from any lead nurturing, call back, cold email workflows, because you don't want to confuse the client. You don't want to put the client in a mindset like, am I a lead or a client? No, your client should know all the time. They're paying you, they're your client. If they are still in another workflow, let's say appointment reminders or lead nurturing or no-show campaign. Let's say that someone becomes a client and then they no-show you. They no-show you in the second time, but they became a client and they are still in the no-show workflow. So they get called out. Hey, you no-showed your appointment and they just pay you. Like that's going to give them a sour taste. So for that reason, we remove them from as many workflows as possible. In this case, appointment booked. We remove them from call, email, positive reply. We remove them from Facebook ad lead. Okay. Now I'm going to create a new workflow from scratch so you guys can see what I'm doing. How do I do it from scratch? I'm going to start from scratch. And let's do the following. I'm going to create a test workflow so you can see in lightning speed what do I do. New workflow trigger is going to be form submitted. We can convene that every single time someone submits a specific form, let's put another form. Let's put this one. It's a test. Let's say I want to create two different onboardings depending on what the client answers. I can create an if-else condition. This is just a test. Let's say that I want to segment the client based on country codes. So if my client is in the United States, there is one thing that happens. If my client is in Europe, there's another thing that happens. Let's segment this through here. Phone number contains +1. This is going to be the code for US clients. We're going to add another branch, which is international clients. We're going to add a phone number here. Actually, no, we can create 3 branches. So you know what I'm going to do. Let's say the phone number for Peru. Let's say we have Peruvian clients. Then the phone number would contain 51. That's the area code for Peru. And then we can add another branch, actually, Peruvian. We can create other countries. We can put phone does not contain +1 and phone does not contain +51. By the way, if you don't put this third branch, by default, the none is going to lead here, but I want to make sure that I have a branch. So I already have 3 branches. Let's say that for this person, I want to send a text. I want to send an SMS that says like, hey, contact first name, thanks for becoming a client. Then let's say that for Peruvian client, I don't want a text. I just want an email. Perfect. We can do something like this. Always try to use custom values. For example, your company name. Yeah, welcome to. Okay, perfect. Let's say that the US client also should get this. We're going to copy here, and then we're going to paste it. And let's say that hypothetically, I want to add a tag. So this client, I know this client is going to be US. Now let's see that we do something different. We put a test tag for this client. And then for the Peruvian client, we put attention needed. And then for the international client, we put launched. This is just an example, by the way. You don't have to do anything like this for your business. But what I'm trying to illustrate, is how you can split the same onboarding workflow into different things based on what the client has filled out in the question. Let's say that here, I also want to give them membership access. Actually, no, we can assign to users. This is what I want to illustrate. The US client, let's say that I want to add to different users, but to add to different users is going to depend on one of the other factor. I'm going to show it right now. Let's say that if the state is Illinois in the US clients, I can even segment this Illinois client, and then we can put like Florida client. The state is Florida, or I can put contains, actually, contains. Let's say that I want to assign this to one user, and I'm going to assign this to another user. That's something we can do. Let's say I want to keep adding more things. For example, every single time I have a new client, before this condition, I can add this to a Facebook custom audience. Right now, I don't have, just going to make this a test, okay? So we can hypothetically say that every single time there is a new client onboarded, we're going to add them to a customer audience. What other things we can do? Easy. Let's say that we want to do a one-time charge every single time a client gets onboarded, because we want to charge them a setup fee. We can do Stripe one-time charge. In this case, we don't have the customer ID, but let's say hypothetically that I'm going to find it here. And then the amount is going to be, let's say, 300 setup fee. This, again, is just an example of the many things you can do with your onboarding sequence. Another thing that I strongly recommend is that you update the contact field. So you update the contact field. There is a contact field that says like customer status. You should put client. Very important, actually. I didn't do that in the other because client hasn't requested, but now that I look back, it's actually important. So here I'm just illustrating how you can split your onboarding sequence depending on different answers to the onboarding form, different answers to the questions. Okay, that's what I'm doing right sequence, now. Depending on different answers to the onboarding form, please drop a 3. Now drop a 3 if you are understanding. If you understand, if you're following me, why I'm doing different branches. Because I want to illustrate the extent that you can reach with your onboarding form. That means that you don't have to onboard every client the same way, but you can actually distribute the onboarding form into different things. Now, I'm going to make another example. Let's say that, again, here, we're splitting into conditions, right? So here we can say the following. The Peruvian client, let's say they get a course that the other persons don't do. We can go here to membership, and we're going to grant an offer, right? We don't have right now an offer, but it's just an example of the things you can do. Another thing you can say is, hey, this person is not going to get an SMS because we don't want to spend Twilio, but we're going to add a note that says Peruvian client. And then we could say that the other country's client, they get an email that says, I'm going to Welcome to and then they get something else. They also get that to another workflow. Yeah, that can be an example. We can add them to another workflow. Let's say that these people, the international clients, they need to book a call with me. So I'm going to put them in a workflow that is interview. Okay. That way I'm splitting. So this is for you to understand. This is for you to understand. I'm splitting my onboarding sequence into different branches. And even within branches, you can split. Now, here's where the real magic is going to happen. And this is my favorite part. If you have other tools, as I said originally, if you have other tools, for example, project management tools, databases, other CRMs, you should definitely be using an integration with a webhook. Many people for this use Zapier. But I don't recommend using Zapier. I recommend you use make.com. Before I explain what make.com is, many of you might not know it. So make.com is the equivalent of Zapier, but cheaper on steroids. Look, the price of Zapier, in my opinion, is very, very, very inefficient. It's not very cost effective. You can see here, if you pay monthly for a professional plan, if you spend 10,000 tasks per month, which is pretty average for a decent sized agency, you're going to spend 193. The same plan, okay, the same plan on Make, you're going to spend $18. 193 versus 18. Okay, and it's worse if you spend 50,000 tasks every month. Just for the professional plan, it's 433 versus in the professional plan, 40K tasks cost 62 a month. That's a dramatic, yes, Gabriel, yes. Pabbly, by the way, Pabbly doesn't have all the functionalities that Make does. It's not as robust integrator tool as Make. I'm going to explain why right now you should be using Make, and Make is even better than Pabbly. That's a question. Yeah. Make even better. It's even better. So as I said before, every single time you submit anything on Go High Level, any sort of event that can trigger a workflow can also trigger a webhook. Okay, not just a form, but anything that starts a workflow can trigger a webhook. Now, the difference between starting a webhook with a form submission versus, let's say, tag added is the amount of information that you're going to get. You should always add a webhook if you want to use this tool. And then here's what you're going to do. You're going to create a new scenario. You would create a webhook in Make. And you will create a custom webhook. Then you would create a new webhook. Let's say test. And then you copy this and paste it here. Here's what this is going to do. All the data that is in your onboarding form is going to be sent. All your data that is in your onboarding form is going to be sent to Make. For Zapier is the same thing, really. Yeah. Integrately is an option too. I haven't used it, but it's definitely an option. So I'm going to show what you need to do later. What are the things that you can do? I'm going to delete this scenario right now because I'm not using this, and I'm going to delete this because I'm not using it. For the actual scenario that I have, every single time there is a webhook added here, all this is going to happen. And this is really magical. I strongly recommend that you pay full attention to this part because it's going to blow your mind. Chris, can you explain the difference between Zapier versus Make for GHL based on productivity? Yes, Zapier is up to down. So it's not visually helpful as Make. With Make, you can do a bunch of stuff. You can see things from here to here. And when things break and there is an error, sometimes there are going to be some errors, which I fixed successfully, but it tells you exactly where the error is. And it gives you full data. It gives you full data on the operations, on the log. You can check advanced logs. So you can see every single thing that is happening in your scenario, in your execution. This is so helpful to track mistakes and errors. This is the reason why I use Make. Okay, now let me go to the diagram again, and I'm going to show you step by step what these things do for me and what these things do for my client, most importantly. The webhook should be the first part of this onboarding sequence. So just to provide a brief clarification, if this is not clear to you, the data that comes from Go High Level, everything that the person fill out in the onboarding form, that data is going to be sent somewhere else. It's like I'm sending, I write in a paper all the information and I'm sending it somewhere else. That's how it works. Here's what's going to happen. The first thing, I want to parse the phone number. There are two phone numbers I want to parse, the cell phone and the phone number. Then I'm going to set the agency API key. Here, the purpose of doing this is I can create a GHL location on autopilot, not manually, but on autopilot. So every single time a new client gets onboarded, all these accounts get created automatically, not manually, but automatically. Here's how we're going to do this. It's a long process. Yes. We're going to set up the agency API key. That's the first step. The agency API key is found at the agency view level. You would go to settings and API keys. This is how you found. The next step is we're going to create a GHL location based on this. So we're going to do something called a post request. We're going to do something called a post request. This is a little bit complicated. Yes, it is. I scratched my head a lot when I was first learning this stuff. But basically what a post request is, with the information that we have now on Make, we want to send information back to somewhere else. So it's like we're sending a webhook, but the other side. Remember, the webhook originally gives us information. The post request, HTTP method is post, sends back to that place, sends information back to that place. In this case, the URL is locations. How do we find this? It's easy. There is something called the GHL documentation. The Go High Level, exactly. Yes, yeah, it's like programming in between platforms. Yes. So the Go High Level documentation, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the most powerful resources that you're ever gonna find if you wanna do no code developing. Go High Level, I'm gonna post it here, Go High Level API 1.0 documentation. The documentation is gonna give you all the information that you need to accomplish no code programming. In the documentation, they tell us how to do this. How do we create a location? How do we do a post request? Easy. It tells us what we need to do. For example, URL. The URL is here, locations. Method, it's a post request. We already know this. What do we have to do? We have to put the following. Look, authorization, bearer token, authorization, bearer token, and token is the token, API key. So Here's the way we do it. Authorization, bearer, and the token is the agency API key that we set before. Okay, this is how we do it. Then we need to put content type application.json. How do I know this? Because they tell us how to do this in the post request. JSON fields, right? JSON. Yeah, content type JSON, body raw. Content type JSON, body type raw. JSON. We need to request the content. This is the content that we're going to request. And these are the allowed JSON fields. In this case, we're requesting business name, address, city, country, state. By the way, we can only use some of these fields. Sorry, we can use all of these fields, but the fields need to be existing here. If the field is not existing here, it's not going to work. It is not going to work. So we're putting all the fields, and here is where we get, here's where the webhook tells us the valuable information. Where do we get all this information? The business name, the address, the city, the state, the website, the time zone, the first name, from the webhook of the onboarding form. Exactly. So what the person just filled out in their form, which by the way, I'm going to show you. This is the onboarding form. All this information, when people fill it out, is going to produce a webhook. And in the webhook, we can extract all that information. Okay, we can extract all that information, and we're going to send it back to Go High Level. Very important. You need to know your Twilio SID. That's a Twilio thing that separates the authorization token as well, and the snapshot ID. You need to know what snapshot ID you wanna include. So in this case, it would create a Go High Level sub account with a specific snapshot. Once we do this, I'm splitting the benefits. I'm going to later explain why. I'm going to parse the JSON. So all the data that I get when I create a GHL location, it's going to give me a bunch of data in JSON. JSON, it's a format. Like technically what JSON means. Actually going to Google it. JSON means JavaScript object notation. So it's a data interchange format. That's what JSON means. For getting the location API key, we need to parse the JSON. What am I trying to achieve here? I know this can be a little confusing. The next step I'm trying to achieve is get the Twilio account details so I can then get Twilio available numbers and I can buy a Twilio phone number. And I'm going to explain this, how to do it right now. Whenever this is created, there's going to be data on everything that has been created. The data is going to look like this. It's going to be a long string, a very, very long string. So this thing is going to split the data into multiple things. This data, the parse JSON, is going to parse the JSON string, which is like a long piece of data, into bullet points. Here's how. Now we can see that the information has been split. So we have the API key, the location API key. With this location API key, I can then get a list of locations. And then we're going to get the Twilio account details. For this, we use the Twilio API. What we're trying to do here is automating buying the Twilio phone number. You can check here Twilio documentation. In this case, it was for SMS, if I'm not wrong. Here's where I got this information, by the way. So now that we have this, we're setting an SID variable. And this is used to get all the available numbers in the area code. We're getting all the available numbers in the area code. Remember why we asked the area code in the onboarding form. This is for Twilio number. So we ask for the area code. This has to be a number, by the way. We only accept a number, so it can be letters. Well, it can be, but the client has to put an has to put numbers. This is how it works. This can be an area code, for example. Then with this, we get and we're gonna buy this phone number. We're gonna set the phone to buy the phone number. Where do we get this? From here, from get Twilio available phone numbers. You can see here the phone number that is available for this area code. Then there are going to be two routes that are possible, and it's very important that you pay full attention here. If the phone number to buy doesn't exist, that means that it's not going to be possible, and we send ourselves an email saying the Twilio number is not available and you have to do it manually. Okay, if the phone number is available, it's going to buy it for you. So basically what's going to happen is instead of you manually having to create a Twilio phone number, you're going to be able to create and buy the Twilio phone number for your client on autopilot. And what's the phone number that you're going to buy? This one, the phone to buy. Because in this variable, we already set the phone number that we want to buy. And if there is an error handler, there's a possibility that this fails. So we have an error handler. This is called an error handler. Then we parse the phone number to buy. There's also error handler here. Then the next step is adding this to a Google Sheets. I always recommend that you always store your lists of leads and clients in a different place than Go High Level. That includes ClickUp, that includes a data store in Make, that includes Google Sheets, because you should always have information at hand in case one software fails. If Go High Level fails or disappears by some reason, you have your list of clients in a Google Sheets. And you also want to have your list of clients in a project management tool. You want to have something called data redundancy, multiple points of data. In this case, we're filling out the Google Sheet row with all the information from the webhook. So we don't want to do this manually. We get all the information from the webhook, including Twilio number, Twilio location, SID, etc. The next step is we send us a Slack message with all the details. We send a Slack message with all the details. Where do we get the details? From multiple touch points. We should always strive to get the details from the webhook, the original. But if we can't get it from the webhook, we need to get it from the other steps, like location API. Yeah, then we're going to create a contact, which is email, cell phone, and name. And then here we're creating the ClickUp tasks. So if you have a project management tool, it's important that you also store your clients there. And we can edit the custom fields. Here. All the custom fields, I have already set them up in ClickUp. Okay, if you haven't, that's a part that you need to do manually in ClickUp. So that way you can insert the custom field information there in the custom fields. Is there any way to check if Twilio number is or has been on blacklist? So I personally don't know any tool. I personally don't know the tools to check that, but if you know the tools, then what you could do is you could run a check here and add a module in between. Now, yeah, what's coming? I know what's coming is amazing. So here are the next steps, and this is really, really, really next level. Here's an example of a router. A router is this equivalent in Go High Level of an if-else. Remember, an if-else creates branches. A router in Make is going to create different routes. Let's say if this happens, we're going to send the person to this route. If this happens, it's going to send it here. But unlike Make, a person, a lead, a piece of information can go to multiple routes if they fulfill all the criteria. The next step is I create a Google Drive in client campaigns. I create a new folder within a folder. And in this folder, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I'm creating the ad copies for the client based on the information for the ad. For example, this is a recruiting agency in the tree service niche. I'm putting what position they want to hire, salary range, revenue, position to hire, start case, name to put in the ad, ratings on Google. And we can do the following. We're only going to put this data if the average rating on Google is equal or above 4. That's a function that you can use in Make, which is really, really, really next level. Another thing, for example, is you can split the salary. You can split a piece of information using something called substring. For example, let's say that a piece of text says hello, and you want a substring. So you want to split that piece into from whatever it's from the character 0 to 3. So instead of hello, it only says hell. Or if you want to split between the 1 and the 3, the character number 1 and character number 3, it's going to say L instead of hello. That's the kind of magic that you can do with Make that is very hard to do with Zapier. I don't think you can do it, which is the reason why I love Make. So with this, I basically automated my ad copy, and I'm going to create multiple documents, and I'm going to download them, and then we're uploading the doc. We're uploading the doc to the ClickUp. And where do you think we're sending these docs? We're sending them to the same folder that we created in the last step, which was create a Google Drive folder. So with this, I've automated multiple things of the process. I've automated creating a Twilio number and buying a Twilio number. I've automated creating a GHL location. I have automated sending myself an email if this doesn't work. I've automated creating a Google Sheet row. I've automated sending a Slack message. I've automated updating a task in ClickUp. And I've automated creating multiple Google Docs, as you can see here, multiple Google Docs for different ad copy templates for every single position that is available. So you can see here, the client can choose multiple positions. And if they choose multiple positions, we're going to create an ad copy for each template. That's the way we're going to do it. And we have two options here. If they do bulk hiring, we just create one ad copy for all the positions. If they do bulk hiring, So if they choose yes to bulk hiring, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create multiple ad copies, all the ad copy templates for as many positions as they choose. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, how you can fully automate your client onboarding. Yes. Jeff, how long it take to build this masterpiece? I'm going to reply this. Took me exactly 30 hours. And by the way, for the ones that haven't arrived, I explained how I created this in ClickUp. So I tracked everything that needed to be done in my onboarding process, including the make scenario. The make scenario itself took 23 hours. Yeah, and it required a lot of revisions. There were many issues involved in creating this. It was not straightforward. I had to keep track of the custom values. There were problems and solutions. But every single problem I solved. So whenever you're working on a very complex problem for a client, I recommend that you track everything. You track everything, every support video that Google High Level sends, every Loom video that you send them, every YouTube video that you check. You should keep track of it, because that way you document your process, and it's gonna make it so much easier. Yeah. So finally, before we leave, I want to answer any questions. Please drop them in the chat. We are here, and I know it's technically 4 p.m. We've exceeded the hour, but we started 3 minutes late. So I want to keep 5 minutes for Q&A. If Samuel allows me more, I can do 10 minutes of Q&A. Okay, so I'll be waiting. I'm going to take 10 minutes for Q&A. Any automations for domains? This is a great question. Automation for domains. Let me see if there's a who is module. There might be one. Okay, you can search a domain. So GoDaddy, you can search a domain. Right now, I don't have a GoDaddy account right now to do this, but you might be able to. So you might be able to search for a domain. And if no, from GoDaddy, Cloudflare, I know, has an automation. So you can, as far as I know, it's possible to set up hosting. I haven't done it myself, but you can create DNS records. This is important. You can create DNS records for a website, for example. You can delete DNS records. You can create a zone as well. For hosting, let's see what else is available in GoDaddy. Yeah, you can create a domain once you choose the domain. You can get a domain, you can renew a domain, you can update a domain, update DNS records. So those are the things that you can do. I haven't done it personally, but yes. Domains to funnels. I haven't done it personally. So my thought process when I'm searching for something is checking the API documentation. For example, Go High Level has an amazing API 1.1 documentation. I'm sure Samuel would attest, this documentation is very, very, very robust because you can do a bunch of stuff with this. You can post, you can create users, you can create trigger links, you can get time zones, you can create tags, you can create tasks, you can create opportunities, notes, location, and everything else you can get. You can get the details. You can get the details of a contact appointment. You can get a contact campaign, etc. Another documentation is the Twilio documentation. So all the information on Twilio I got from the documentation. I'm gonna delete them. It's very important that you always, if you don't wanna save something for your client, you delete it. Otherwise, you're gonna save and then it's gonna be a mess. So either don't save or delete any change that you're doing. Another question. Okay, I have technically 5 more minutes. Cloudflare to create records, but can we connect in GHL? Let me check here in the documentation. Let's check it right now. Is there anything on domain on funnels? Calendar, appointment. Forms, location ID. So to answer Gabriel, I don't see, unfortunately, any possible automation on Go High Level to add funnel domain here. Let me try directly on Make and see if it's possible. So Go High Level also has a module, just so you guys know. And by the way, try to use this module instead of the post request. Always try to use the native integration. Okay. So search contact, create contact. Yeah, I don't see anything to technically do, Gabriel, what you want, unfortunately. Daniel, what's your plan with OpenAI? I currently don't have one, but I know I need to get one. Yep. By the way, AI definitely for sure. I don't know if AI can replace all, in this case, the ad copy. If you want to automate your ad copy and you don't want to do these complicated steps, there is something called App Hex that is going to allow you to create Facebook ads from Go High Level directly. That's an integration, but that's a different software. So you can go to routes. You can either use external software or not use external software and do as much as possible automations with Make and Go High Level. Now, I want to make you guys an offer. It's going to be, right now, I'm doing it on the fly. So I'm going to make you a one-time offer. By the way, these are not my regular prices. So I don't think I'll do an offer like this again. So here's my offer to you. For 250, for only 250, I can give you a drag and drop blueprint of my whole onboarding sequence. Here's what I'm going to do for 250. If you want to get this onboarding sequence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm going to export the blueprint. And then whoever buys it from me is going to get it. It's going to get this blueprint. So what you will need to do is then if you pay me, I give you the file. You would replace your connections. So you would replace whatever fields you want with your information. But instead of creating all of these step by step, it would just be a plug and play. So you can install it in your own Make account, and you would need to replace the fields in the onboarding form. The fields in the onboarding form and the connections. For example, if you have a Google Drive, you would obviously need to replace it. If you want, this is extremely, extremely, extremely generous. One-time offer too. For $14.97, regular price $2,500. I'm gonna build you a complete done for you onboarding sequence using Go High Level and Make of up to 20 steps. So just so you know, guys, I know people that are charging 5,000 for done for you build out scenarios like this. I know Samuel would charge 5,000. Totally understand. Am I missing a zero from that 250? Yes, but only for the ones in this chat right now, in this call. I'm gonna offer this. All you need to do is just ask. All you need to do, I'm not gonna drop a link, guys. I'm not gonna chase anyone because my prices currently are much higher than the offer I'm making. But again, I wanna be very, very, very generous here. So all you need to do is send me a message. The only requirement for this to work is that you get started today. Like if you tell me, hey, Christian, in 3 weeks, I want to get your 250 onboarding sequence. Send it to me in 3 weeks. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. Because in 3 weeks, I know my prices after this call, I'm going to have to raise my prices.
Oh my God. Dude, this is the craziest deal ever, bro. Thank you for throwing this in the group, dude. This is crazy. So I want to give a little bit of context. Yes, I would charge $5,000 for this. Honestly, I have put together other systems that I've charged like $15,000 for. So if you are currently looking for an onboarding system, honestly, I would go ahead and pull the trigger. Do you have a calendar page or anything, or how should people get in contact with you, Chris?
I'm just gonna get my Facebook link. This is very, very ironic, but I'm so busy building systems for other people that I have not put a calendar link for this offer, which is very, very ironic. It's like the web designer that doesn't have a website. I do have a website. Yeah, it's a little bit outdated. It doesn't reflect my offering. So this is my Facebook link.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, drop it in the chat for sure. So guys, at the end of the day here, the question is really how much time is this how much time is this going to save you, and how much do you value your time at? You know what I'm saying? If it's saving hours and hours and hours every single month, and it's going to keep on doing that month after month after month, how soon are you actually seeing an ROI on that? The answer is very soon. If not like almost immediately within the first week, depending on the volume of clients that you have. So if you are currently looking for a system, I really do recommend that you reach out to Christian here and take advantage of this offer. Because personally, and I'm not just trying to say oh, dude, I would literally charge 5Gs just to hype him up. I would charge 5Gs. I would charge more than 5Gs for this. And Christian is a trusted integrator and HighLevel Wizard. So if you are looking for this, cash in on this deal, and Yeah, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, Chris?
Yeah, I'm grateful I have the opportunity to be here. I know, Samuel, I met you in the GHL event. I'm an introvert, so I had to be 4 days, talking to people all day. I was like, wow.
Dude, it was funny because you actually spoke to more people than I did.
Man, I did an effort. Like I put
Dude,
a goal, I put a KPI. I put a KPI and say I can't go to sleep without hitting KPI. Okay.
dude, you took pictures with every single person there, bro.
Yeah,
I
that's
was like,
true.
I was like, dude, Christian is seriously an introvert. He totally freaking like out networked me. Dude, thank you so much for hopping on, and for everyone who's currently watching. If you also were looking forward to hopping on for the freelancer town hall, I went ahead and I moved that an hour. I wanted to give Christian enough time to make this offer here. So we're going to be reconvening with a live stream at exactly, well, like an hour and 2 minutes from now. So at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry for the last second switch up. But if you can't make it, once again, it will be available via replay. Although I do recommend that you show up live for sure, because we're going to be covering some really cool stuff about the future of this group. Christian, thank
Yeah,
you once again, bro, and I look forward to having you come back. Honestly, and
100%, man.
yeah,
I
dude. I mean, it'd be super cool to see you here regularly, bro. And thank you so much for this, dude. Yeah, because
yeah,
seriously, I think that there's like a certain thing that happens when people start to realize, oh, like what exactly is even possible. So many people are like,
yeah.
they'll see
Like
something and they're like,
I didn't know 6 months ago what was possible with Make. I'm like my learning
yes,
curve
dude.
in the
I
last
remember that.
months.
Do you remember the conversation that we had, dude?
Yeah,
Yes. So it is amazing to see how full circle this is coming, dude. But all right, man. Well, I'll let you go, dude. And I hope that people go ahead and take advantage of your offer. Um, and then for everyone else, I'll see you here in an hour.
100%, man. You too.
See you guys.
You guys.